Still no explanation for this wave of unexplained killings that are sweeping across this city. A deadly crime spree with no end.
Off-duty law enforcement.
Resident Evil Apocalypse is an incomprehensible film, an incoherent film, an idiotic film. It has a lot of descriptors, and all of them seem to start with the letter I for some reason. This 2004 sequel to the first Resident Evil film, which I reviewed last October, lacks any storytelling finesse, any artistic goal. It feels like a film without a blueprint. It is a pile of random foodstuffs, banana and cheese crackers and shrimp and toenail clippings blended together and served to you as lukewarm soup. It is peak Hollywood cynicism, uncaring for its audience, just pushing out a product. Eat it. It's soup. Who cares what's in it? It's soup. Shut up and eat it. Which is kind of perfect for a film that is essentially about a massive, unwieldy corporation making sloppy, senseless decisions with little interest in serving the masses. Like Hollywood did with this film, the Umbrella Corporation performs actions that are too stupid and too contemptuous to its customers that it's a wonder they ever make money. And yet, here we are. This is a genuinely bad movie, but I think a significant part of my disappointment with it stems from the fact that the first Resident Evil was almost a smart movie, almost subtle, and even when it stopped being so, it was still a coherent and logical aliens but with zombies instead of xenomorphs type of film, if a bit soulless. It's not that I ever expected any of these films to be entered into the Criterion Collection, but I was hoping the series could at least maintain this almost smart level of quality. So what happened? Well, the easiest place to lay the blame on is the new director, Alexander Witt. Paul W.S. Anderson still wrote and produced the film, but he was busy directing Aliens vs. Predator, so duties were handed over to Witt, who was not a director, but a second unit director of photography. Of course, there's the dream of moving up in the film industry, going from getting coffee to becoming a world-famous director, but yeah, that doesn't happen, and Witt was not cut out for this. Outside of Anderson, Mila Jovovich, and a few loose producers, most of the major creative figures from the first film were gone. The sequel had different cinematographers, a different editor, a different composer, nobody who understood the first film's momentum and could keep it rolling, nobody who could really help pick up the slack left by Witt's inexperience or lack of ability, depending on how you want to read it. A rookie director, a screenwriter/producer whose attention was elsewhere, and a team who didn't work on the first film. So what kind of film does that get you? This film has a lot of issues, but the biggest one has to be how it manages characters. So many people shuffle in and out of this movie, so many faces go past the screen, and the film does a terrible job indicating which of these characters are actually important and worth keeping track of, and which of these characters are completely disposable. Consider this scene, where a woman enters a police station where officers are struggling with the first wave of zombies. There are two important characters introduced in this scene. The first one's easy. This woman is Jill Valentine. We'll get back to her. The second is this guy, handcuffed next to a zombie. We don't see this guy until halfway through the scene, where he's already engaged in the action like the rest of the nameless officers. We don't get a clear shot of his face until after the main action of the scene, Jill killing the zombie. He doesn't say anything of note. Jill shoots his handcuffs and she leaves. No, I don't know why she came in here to begin with. Again, we'll get back to Jill. My point is, there's nothing in the scene to indicate that this guy is going to be a main character. He doesn't show up again until 21 minutes later, in a 30-second scene removed from any other established characters. He doesn't meet up with the other main characters until 48 minutes into the movie, and only then do we learn his name.
Lloyd Jefferson Wayne. You can call me LJ on account of the informal situation.
And by this point, we've gone through so many disposable, insignificant characters that you'd be forgiven in thinking LJ wasn't important. You could play a game out of guessing which characters are narratively important and which ones aren't. This woman the Umbrella Corporation are picking up? This TV weather woman? This survivor hiding in a church? This charismatic sniper? These guys flying around in a helicopter? The woman they're trying to save? And so on and so on. The problem is not the existence of ancillary characters. You have those in all movies. The problem is that it's impossible to tell who's ancillary and who's not until the end credits roll and you can tally who did what. As such, it becomes hard to invest in any character besides Jill Valentine and Alice. Speaking of which, Jill Valentine is handled very oddly throughout the film. She's essentially the film's protagonist, except when she's not. She's introduced as a badass who doesn't play by the rules, a tough-as-nails woman with a dark past who seems to know a lot more than she should. She remains our focal character as she meets up with the allies, confronts the evils of the Umbrella Corporation, and gets everyone into this church. Then, a third of the way into the movie, Alice shows up out of nowhere, easily kills the monsters Jill was struggling with, and basically knocks Jill out from the protagonist spot. Alice is a badass who doesn't play by the rules, a tough-as-nails woman with a dark past who seems to know a lot more than she should. Only, more so. If there was a point to that, it would be fine. If there was a struggle for leadership of the group, if Jill felt inadequate because Alice essentially has superpowers, that might be, a story, a character arc. But instead, every time these two characters are sharing a scene, Jill is forced into a secondary role. What's more, Alice manages to one-up Jill not once, but 3 times. First by killing the monsters in the church, then we have a scene where Jill is trying to kill some zombie dogs by lighting a gas leak but fails, so Alice has to light it, but in a much cooler, more badass way. And finally, Jill starts to toss one of the main bad guys out of this helicopter, but Alice is all, no, this is my kill, and tosses him out herself. A weird thing about Jill is that she knows about zombies before the film starts.
Fire, Valentine!
They're infected.
You gotta get this entity off of me!
I told you, she could have had me.
She has history with zombies, which is odd because in the movie's timeline, zombies only just started being a thing. Now, outside of the existence of the Umbrella Corporation and some of the monster designs, the first Resident Evil film had nothing to do with the game series. It was all original characters, original setting, original plot. This film is when elements of the game start to bleed in. Characters like Jill Valentine, Carlos Oliveira, and Nemesis all come from the games, and the plot bears a slight resemblance, and I must stress the word slight, to Resident Evil 3. So I think the implication here is that the events of the first Resident Evil game, which saw Jill Valentine trapped in a mansion full of zombies, is canon with the film series, and that's why she knows how zombies work? Except the Umbrella Corporation didn't know how zombies work, because they're constantly surprised how zombies work. And Jill doesn't seem to have a grudge against the Umbrella Corporation for all the friends she lost in their mansion. But if those events didn't happen, how does she know how zombies work? And if those events did happen, well, a majority of the people watching this film haven't played that game, so it's a moot point, and everyone's going to be asking how she knows how zombies work. Except, does she know how zombies work? She knows she has to shoot them in the head, but doesn't seem to know that zombie bites spread the infection. Alice does because she has to show up Jill at everything, and also the lead actress and screenwriter were dating, just throwing that out there. Oh, and also, the zombies in the Resident Evil games don't turn you into zombies through bites. That's a George A. Romero thing they put into the films. I'm not one to get caught up in what they changed from the source material. I just think it's funny because they kicked Romero out of the director's chair for the first film. R.I.P. George Romero. The get bit by zombies become zombies information is actually given to the audience twice, presented by 2 different characters to 2 different groups of characters, and at no point is this treated as a serious deal. Characters who are bitten just kind of shrug it off, and when a character turns into a zombie, everyone acts like it's the most surprising thing. In the broad strokes, the story of Resident Evil Apocalypse is pretty straightforward. You have the overall story of a group of people surviving a zombie infestation. You have a more focused secondary plot where one of the Umbrella scientists recruits some of the survivors to find his daughter in destruction. And you have the characters' specific stuff, mostly Alice trying to figure out exactly what the Umbrella Corporation did to her and what all of this has to do with the rubber monster chasing people down with a Gatling gun. That's not a hard thing to script out, but so much of it depends on the Umbrella Corporation both having ungodly power and also being complete morons. Raccoon City appears to be completely privatized. The Umbrella Corporation controls its borders and are able to declare martial law with their own private military. And also, all the bullets you can buy at the gun store are Umbrella branded bullets. Also, they have nuclear weapons. What? If this were a smarter story, you could take what is effectively a capitalist-run city-state and use the zombie invasion as a metaphor towards the working class overthrowing the upper class, aka Romero's Land of the Dead, which came out a year after this film. Of course they don't do that because Resident Evil has tried so hard to reject Romero, despite having to, grab bits and pieces of the Romero mythos. Despite this significant amount of power, though, Umbrella Corporation is run by complete idiots. From letting the zombies out in the first place, to not having a proper evacuation plan, to not knowing how hostage situations work.
He was a valuable asset to the corporation. I don't even care about these people.
Then why did you shoot him? Alice had a bunch of new allies you could have shot, but instead you killed the one guy you actually needed? Also, Umbrella created a monster called Nemesis, and they make it and Alice fight to the death, because I guess they didn't realize that having 2 genetically modified super soldiers on their team was better than having just one who might get irreversibly hurt in this fight. And then on top of it all, after our heroes defeat the bad guy and escape the city in time, there's a 9-minute coda where Alice is taken by Umbrella and some things happen to her and she gets away. A whole new villain shows up. There's some new twists in Alice's abilities. It's like someone stitched the first 10 minutes of a potential third film onto the end of this film. It's so weird and not how movies do. Resident Evil Apocalypse is one of the purest examples of Hollywood laziness, a film that sees its audience as nothing more than cash dispensers who will eat up anything put in front of them. And the sad part is, they were mostly right in their instincts. This movie made a lot of money and paved way for more sequels, even if the director wasn't asked to return. I have a guttural negative reaction to trash cinema like this, bad films brought about by lethargic capitalism. It's worse than the first film, but really, the first film was just as soulless. A franchise swayed by hunting trends with no heart of its own. I have no sympathy for this kind of garbage.